So I studied boarding school in England. I went to university in the US. I was an investment banker, and I also play sports. I'm a professional polo player, among the best in the country, actually among the number one or two easily. And I was also a American All-Star, the first one in Asian to be merited American All-Star. Also polo of the captain team for the English national team for the under 21. And now I run my startup BookDoc. BookDoc, I started in October 2015. Right now, we are in 5 countries and 20 cities. So Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Thailand, and Indonesia. So the mission and vision is to actually improve access to care, improve transparency, and primary goal is basically to connect and unite patient and healthcare provider. You cannot depend on anyone. You have to depend on yourself, unfortunately, but it's true. And you have to work very hard, especially if you have your own business, especially as a startup. If you work for a big multinational, you're the CEO, you're the senior management, it's much easier because people recognize the brand of the company. Say if you work at Coca-Cola, Pepsi, General Electric, Samsung, etc., right? But if you're running your own company, so it's your personal reputation and credibility, right? So it's a different thing altogether, number one. And number two, the high thing is when the low things, there are many. So like getting rejection all the time is very, very standard. Like you do like 100 pitches, even like 90 of them didn't even want to allow you to set up a call, even want to bother talking to you. And of the other 10, you're lucky to get 1 or 2 who say, yeah, let's have a talk. And hopefully of one of the 2, they will say, hey, I think you make sense. You make perfect sense. Let's work together, right? So I think the resiliency that you have to have, and the high thing is when you start closing deals, right? Then I think that is the best part. Like for myself, like how I started this company, how we have global collaboration with Uber, Grab, Agoda, TripAdvisor, Memes, all the top hospitals in the region, right? So an endorsement from various ministries and even like Special Olympics and big insurance companies, etc., and signing contracts with multinational Fortune 500 companies. So I think those are the high points that you could say, hey, your idea is making sense and is proven with all the contracts being signed, right? Actually, there's no threat to the business. It's a very challenging environment, obviously, because number one, there are a lot of unemployment, not only a particular sector, across all sectors, right? So that's number one. Number two, it's not geographically bounded. So it's not only happening, say, in KL, Johor, or just Malaysia per se. It's happening globally because this is a global pandemic, not an epidemic, right? So that is number one. So when that happens, what happens when people start losing their job, they will try to save more and they will only spend on the necessaries, right? So if your products or services you're selling are the nice to have, I mean, unfortunately, that's the first thing they will cut as a consumer, even yourself or myself, right? I mean, in those environment. But fortunately, I'm in the technology space. And again, just because you're in technology doesn't mean you're also exempted, right? I mean, you see Uber share price had dropped post IPO right now, 70-80%. They have laid off 2 weeks ago, a few thousand people. 2 days ago, the CEO announced another few thousand people lay off. Airbnb is valuation cut by 50%. TT Kwai, another equivalent in China, also cut. Ola today from India also mentioned their revenue dropped by 95%, right? So, but you're talking about global companies that they are also not spared from this. So, but we are more fortunate because we are in the medical field, and people always say this, right? In we human life, 2 things we would never ever sacrifice: for yourself, for your kids, which is number 1, health. Number 2, education. These 2 is like a must-do thing for whoever they are, whether you're rich, poor, education background, what country you live in, what are your religious belief, right? But you can look at it today, sorry, education is also no longer a priority. You see a lot of schools in the US, in Malaysia itself, in so many countries are being shut. And the only thing people really spend and really care about right now is health. So health had taken on the number one priority, full stop, across the globe. Doesn't matter who you are, even though if you are a prince, a very famous prince called Prince Charles, he also had COVID. You say you are the leader, a head of state. Even Boris Johnson, he has issue. Even you say Russian prime minister, he has COVID too. Or you are a very famous celebrity or Hollywood actor like Tom Hanks, he had COVID too. So it just shows you that regardless of your race, your religion, your social economic background, etc., no one is spared from this pandemic. This virus, no one's. He just attack you when you're weak, when you don't follow certain protocols to take care of yourself. So for us, we see a lot of opportunity because we see the penetration rate using smartphone are increasing because people are staying home more. So when they're bored, they use more digital stuff because they can't go out, number one. And number two, because it's health, and a lot of people we see using our telehealth, they're using a lot of webinar, they are doing a lot of lab Uberization where they just want to do the lab COVID test at their home, or some ordering for the staff for the benefit. So if anything happen, they can limit the spread in a company than across the companies, right? Number one, digitally. So we also help companies manage all the employees' claims. So it's to digitize and automate that. So of course, today people are looking more on automation, maybe because of Industry 4.0. But because of this big headwind to companies, but huge tailwind to organizations like us, then you see people adopt it in a quicker rate. That's number one. And number two, people will also want to be more in touch with their loved one and have all the medical records, because when they go anywhere right now, they can say, I'll go home, I go to my office and take up my lab test report, my medical record, etc. So everyone would want to do things more digitally, so their health record are more accessible. And of course, being accessible is one thing. So if they want to talk to doctors right now, I think the new norm will be people will be not shy to talk to people digitally versus you have to be touched. Of course, there are certain procedure where you're doing a chemotherapy. Obviously, you have to go to a hospital to do it, right? But globally, statistics have shown in the medical field, about 70 to 75% of people visit to hospital or clinics. Actually, those are so-called unnecessary because those are for monitoring purposes only. So monitoring purposes, you can talk digitally, right? As long as you have the medical record of the patient or yourself available to the healthcare providers, they can reach out to you and you still have the same amount of consultation and follow-up required. I don't see any issue on that part. So I think that will be the new norm post-COVID.